The alley behind Giovanni's restaurant was cloaked in shadows, the faint glow of a single street lamp flickering against the damp brick walls. A light drizzle whispered against the pavement, turning the air cold and heavy with silence. Marcus Bennett stood near the back door, his coat collar turned up against the wind. He wasn't just any man sneaking out of a restaurant. He was the owner. At 37, Marcus ran one of the city's most successful chains of fine dining spots. Yet tonight he wasn't here as the boss. He was undercover observing his own staff, seeing the truth behind the polished smiles and perfect service. He had almost left when something unusual caught his eye. Movement near the dumpster, where the street light barely reached. A woman, his waitress from earlier that evening, knelt beside a pair of small figures huddled under a cardboard lean-to. Her name came back to him instantly. Sarah. Mid-20s, soft-spoken, with eyes that carried quiet warmth. Now, in the dim alley, she was carefully unpacking something from her canvas bag. "Here you go, Emma and Jake," she whispered, her voice gentle but sure. Still warm from tonight's dinner rush, Marcus watched as two little faces emerged from the shadows. A boy, maybe 7, his hoodie frayed at the sleeves, and a little girl, barely 4, clutching a stuffed rabbit missing one ear. The boy's eyes lit up at the sight of food. "Thank you, Miss Sarah," he said shyly. "Emma was really hungry, but I told her you'd come." "You always do." Marcus felt a strange tightness in his chest. This woman, earning barely enough to cover rent, was out here night after night, feeding children who had no one else. Sarah crouched lower, meeting their eyes with quiet compassion. "Jake, are you two staying warm enough?" she asked softly. "I brought an extra blanket from home if you need it." The little girl nodded, her voice small and tired. "We're okay. Jake says we gotta be brave until Mama comes back." For a moment, Sarah didn't speak. Her eyes glistened in the low light, filled with something deeper than pity, something like heartbreak. And from the shadows, Marcus stood frozen, realizing he had just witnessed kindness the world rarely noticed, and a truth that would not leave him the same. "You two are incredibly brave," Sarah said, her voice gentle but full of admiration. "And Jake? You're an amazing big brother." Marcus stayed hidden in the shadows, completely transfixed. Just a few steps from his restaurant's back door, this small act of compassion unfolded. Quiet, ordinary, yet infinitely more powerful than anything happening inside his polished dining rooms. He had never noticed these children before. Never realized that hardship and hunger lived so close to his profitable business empire. "Miss Sarah," Jake's small voice broke the silence. "The man in the fancy suit. He came around again today. He was asking questions about you." Sarah's brow furrowed. "Questions? What kind of questions?" Jake hesitated, then answered in his soft, serious tone. "He seemed nice, but we didn't tell him anything. You said it was our secret." Concern shadowed Sarah's face. "And what did he look like, Jake?" "Tall, dark hair, wearing a really expensive jacket. He asked the people at the sandwich shop if they knew about the lady who brings food to kids in the alley." Marcus's heart skipped. That description, it was him. Earlier that day, he had been asking nearby business owners about someone distributing food to the homeless. At first, he assumed it was some unofficial charity that could risk his restaurant's reputation. He hadn't realized he had been shadowing kindness itself, shame and surprise twisted in his chest. This young woman wasn't running a scheme. She was quietly saving lives, right here where no one bothered to look. Sarah knelt closer to the children, brushing Jake's hair back from his forehead. "Don't worry about the man in the suit. I'll handle that now. Let's see if you two need anything else tonight." She spent several more minutes making sure Emma and Jake had enough blankets, proper shelter, and a little comfort for the night. She handed them a small flashlight, promising to return tomorrow with more food. As Sarah finally began to stand, Marcus made a choice that would change everything. He stepped from the shadows slowly, his hands raised slightly to show he meant no harm, careful not to scare the children or put Sarah on the defensive. "Excuse me?" he said softly, his voice low and cautious. Sarah spun around immediately, planting herself between Marcus and the children. Her eyes widened in recognition. The same man who had dined at her table earlier, impeccably dressed, now standing inches away in the alley's dim light. "Sir," she began, her voice steady but wary, ready to protect the kids at any cost. "I can explain," Sarah said, her voice steady, though Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. She wasn't used to being confronted, especially not like this, in the quiet shadows of the alley. "There's nothing to explain," Marcus replied softly, his tone calm, not accusatory. "I'm Marcus Bennett. I own Giovanni's restaurant, and I've been watching what you do here every night." Sarah froze, her face paling. Her mind raced. Was she about to lose her job for taking leftover bread? "Mr. Bennett, I know I should have asked permission before taking the bread," she admitted quickly, her words tumbling out. "But these children were hungry, and it would have just been thrown away. I can pay you back for whatever it cost." Marcus's gaze shifted past Sarah to the two children, Emma and Jake, their small faces etched with worry. These kids had come to rely on her kindness, and the thought of them going hungry because of some policy made him feel sick. "You are not in trouble," Marcus said gently, his voice firm yet understanding. "In fact, I want to know more about what you're doing here. Would you mind if I sat down and talked with all of you?" For the next hour, the alley transformed from a place of shadows into a space of stories, pain, and quiet courage. Marcus learned that 3 months ago, the children's mother had suffered a mental health crisis and was hospitalized. With no other family to care for them, Emma and Jake had been living on the streets, too afraid of the foster system to seek help. Sarah had found them 2 weeks earlier and had been quietly providing food, blankets, and comfort with the little she could spare from her modest paycheck. She had been researching social services, trying to navigate a way to help them officially without separating the siblings or putting them at risk. "I know I should have reported this," Sarah admitted, her voice low, "but I was afraid they would be split up or placed somewhere unsafe. I've been trying to find a family member or a trustworthy guardian who could take them both." Marcus looked at her. This remarkable young woman, sacrificing her own resources and safety to care for children she barely knew. Something inside him shifted. Years of chasing profit margins, expansion, and accolades suddenly felt hollow. And in the quiet courage of Sarah, he was reminded of something far more important: the power of compassion and the responsibility we have to care for one another. "Sarah," Marcus said finally, his voice low but certain, "what if I told you that I want to help? Not just with food, but with finding a real solution for Emma and Jake." Over the following weeks, Marcus worked hand in hand with Sarah, navigating the complex, often overwhelming world of social services and child welfare. Using his resources, connections, and determination, they tracked down Emma and Jake's aunt, a woman living in a nearby state who had been searching desperately for the children ever since their mother's hospitalization. The reunion was raw with emotion. Tears streamed down the aunt's face as she hugged Emma and Jake tightly, gratitude spilling over toward Sarah. "You kept them safe," she whispered, voice breaking. "You kept them alive when no one else could." Legal guardianship began immediately, and she invited Sarah to stay closely involved, ensuring the children could maintain their bond with the woman who had become their lifeline. But the experience had done more than reunite a family. Marcus found himself changed. The quiet courage and selflessness of Sarah had opened his heart in ways he had never anticipated. He began looking forward to their conversations, drawn to her strength, her kindness, and the way she could see the world with unwavering compassion. One evening, walking through the now empty alley where Emma and Jake had once sheltered, Marcus turned to her. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." Sarah looked up, those same kind eyes meeting his. "What is it, Marcus?" He took a deep breath. "When I first started investigating the reports about someone feeding homeless people behind my restaurant, I was worried about liability, public image. I was thinking like a businessman, not a human being." Sarah smiled softly. "You were protecting your livelihood. That's understandable. But you also reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "You reminded me," Marcus continued, voice steady, "that success means nothing if we don't use it to help others. You've changed the way I see everything." 6 months later, Marcus and Sarah stood together at the grand opening of the Bennett Foundation's first transitional housing facility for families experiencing homelessness. It wasn't just a shelter, it was a place of hope, with comprehensive programs to help families rebuild their lives. Emma and Jake were among the honored guests, thriving in their aunt's care but still inseparable from Sarah, who had been their anchor through the darkest days. The children insisted on cutting the ribbon themselves, eager to help other kids in need. "You know," Sarah whispered to Marcus, watching Emma and Jake laugh and run in the courtyard. "I never imagined that hiding, Bray.